this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Middle is supported by Journalism Funding Partners, a nonprofit organization striving to increase the sustainability of local journalism by building connections between donors and news organizations. More information on how you can support The Middle at listentothemiddle.com. Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ Tolliver. And Tolliver, we are officially post-Labor Day, which means, according to the old tradition made famous in the John Waters film Serial Mom, that you can't wear white shoes anymore. But also that we are in the home stretch of the presidential campaign.
I got to tell you, man, Serial Mom was like the scariest movie in the world to me as a kid. But now this election is like, it's a close second. It's pretty scary out there.
Well, you know, one of the things I'm so excited about with this show in particular is that we always get calls from younger listeners. A couple of 12-year-olds even called in when we had the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson on taking questions about space. So I know that this hour we're going to hear from people under, let's say, 40 about what you're thinking about heading into this election. What's most important when it comes to your vote? And we're taking your calls at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. We're going to get to those in just a moment. But first, a couple weeks ago, as Democrats officially nominated Kamala Harris as their presidential candidate, we asked you how you feel about your choices in this election. Here's what some of you had to say on our voicemail after the show.
This is Ken Davis. I'm calling from Aiken, South Carolina.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm calling from Las Vegas.
This is Evan Tucker from Nashville, Tennessee.
My name is Jamie, and I am from the Twin Cities. I am not thrilled about any of the choices in the election. I'm not sure who exactly I'll vote for.
I was okay with Biden, but I'm much more excited with Kamala Harris.
I'm voting for former President Trump. The economy is terrible. Securing our border is really important. Why anyone might think that things will change with Kamala, they seem to be forgetting that she's our current vice president.
non-committed, non-Democrat, non-Republican voters adamantly say that they're going to vote third party no matter what, all because you want to vote your conscience. I think these people don't see the long view of history.
Thanks to everyone who called in, and you can hear that entire episode on our podcast in partnership with iHeart Podcasts on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. So now to our topic this hour, young voters, what matters to you heading into this election? Now, to put things in perspective, half of all voters aged 18 to 29 voted in 2020. That's a remarkable 11-point increase from the previous presidential election. But of course, it's anyone's guess what will happen this time around. The voters who were young then are a little older, and there's a new crop of young voters. Tolliver, how can our listeners reach us?
They can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or write to us at listentothemiddle.com. Or they can write to us on TikTok, which I will be checking.
Good, because I don't like having to do that, but I'm glad that you're going to check TikTok. So joining us now, our panel, originally from Lafayette, Louisiana, Anil Cacodcar, who is a student at Harvard University, where he conducted a poll of young voters across the country with the school's Institute of Politics. Anil, welcome to The Middle.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure.
It's great to have you. And joining us from Baltimore, Carolyn DeWitt, President and Executive Director of Rock the Vote, which since 1990 has worked toward increasing turnout among voters 18 to 24. Carolyn, great to have you with us as well.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me and for uplifting youth voting.
Well, before we get to the phones, Anil, what did you find in your poll were the most important issues to young voters around the country?
The issues that are most important to young voters, in many ways aren't very different from the issues that are, impacting all voters in general. The economy was top of mind for our sample. And the top 3 issues out of 16 that we fielded were inflation, healthcare, and housing. And particularly, I'd like to draw importance to housing. You really can't talk about the economy with young people unless you're talking about the cost of rent.
It's interesting that you mentioned those issues, and not because if you were watching the news or paying attention to the news over the last many months, you would think that young voters care a lot about the war in Gaza. How did that play into your poll?
Absolutely. We conducted an entire research section trying to get to the bottom of how exactly the Israel-Hamas war will impact the youth vote. And what we found is that, for a large, portion of this generation, they aren't just tapped into that conflict, as are, many other foreign policy issues. So if you ask questions about, the Middle East, there's a consistent 40-50% of the sample that doesn't have enough information to make a decision. But for, an election as close as this one, any issue can be an important issue. So I think it's important to, take things into consideration as a whole, and not single out any particular issue as, the issue to win the youth vote.
Carolyn, do you find that young voters are more motivated by issues or candidates?
Certainly issues. I think most voters, right? That's not unique to young voters, but I think what oftentimes is, I would say, not young voters are not given actually the credit that they get a lot of times about how they approach issues. They're not single issue voters. They look at issues in a very complex way, and they see how interrelated they are. So it's not just about a single issue, but it's about a whole broad agenda that a candidate is bringing.
What do you see in your time at Rock the Vote, and you've been there for a while? What do you see are the things that motivate young voters to participate in our elections? Because we always hear that the turnout among younger voters is lower than it is among the population as a whole.
Yeah, I was going to say it's, each election cycle you hear are young voters going to turn out, and each, I feel like, generation is blamed for their turnout, when this is actually not a single generation problem. Since 18-year-olds got the right to vote in 1972, we've seen that young voters have turned out at 20 to 30 points lower in each presidential election, and that disparity is even greater in midterm or in local elections. And that's because we have a systematic problem, right? We don't do much in our country to prepare young people to vote when they turn 18. And even worse, we see as young people have been breaking turnout records in 2018, 2020, we've actually seen some states make it harder for them to vote. So it's incredibly important for us to actually walk what all the research actually says is that young voters are new voters. And so they're unfamiliar with the process. So a lot of it is actually about breaking down the process
and connecting the issues that they care about so passionately to the candidates and to the policies themselves.
Well, let's get to some young voters because they are lighting up the phones right now. Tommy is in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Tommy, welcome to the middle. How old are you? And tell us what you're thinking about this election.
Hi, I'm Tommy. I'm 18 years old, and this will be my first election.
And what are the big issues that are important to you?
I'm most interested in social justice and equity going into our future, and also gun control, especially in our schools. I think both of these and many other issues will make a big difference as we pave our way into the future.
And are you definitely going to vote? This is a question that Anil's poll asked people, but are you definitely going to vote in this election?
While it's definitely harder for me to vote since I have to mail in from college, I have every intention to do so this year.
Great. Tommy, thank you so much for that. And Anil, what do you make of that? He says it's more difficult for him. I mean, this is a problem for a lot of college students. They live in one state because they're going to school there during the school year, and they have to vote in another state.
No, I feel you right there. I have to submit a copy of my student ID to request a mail-in ballot for the first time in the state of Louisiana, where I'll be voting this fall. The important thing is, too, I mean, when we asked 2 years ago in our poll about high school civics education, a lot of young people, just didn't feel like their high schools prepared them to, logistically go through the process. What does it mean to submit a mail-in application? What does it mean to vote early? How am I going to make a plan to vote the day of? Because, those things are things that can catch you off guard as a young voter. And you're building the habits of engaging with a healthy democracy. Folks who have been doing this for 20, 30 years know the drill. They go to their local elementary school right before work or, right after work and have that time carved out and have that muscle memory built into their minds. But something very impressive I want to point out for this generation is that we're voting at twice the rate that our parents were voting when they were our age. So despite all of those challenges, these mobilizing issues have really driven young voters like you and me to the polls.
Let's go to Kenzie, who is in Houston, Texas. Kenzie, welcome to the middle. Go ahead. How old are you?
Hi, I'm Kenzie. I will be 25 on Election Day.
And what's your thought about this? Are you excited to vote?
I actually am. I'm excited now that Kamala is running instead of Biden. So my generation, I feel like we didn't like Biden or Trump 4 years ago whenever it was our first time to vote, and we weren't excited this time either. But now that we actually have a new option, I think there will be more of us going out and voting. I'm an independent, so, I didn't like either option, but now I actually have someone I can be excited about, and I feel like a lot of my friends feel the same way. It's making us want to take the time to go to the polls.
Kenzie, thank you for that call. Carolyn, have you heard a lot of that so far just because of the change in the race that happened over the summer with Biden getting out and Kamala Harris getting in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I should preface this with saying Rock the Vote is nonpartisan. We are just focused on building young people's power, but the reality is we have seen a surge. We've seen a lot of energy. There wasn't, transparently, there wasn't a lot of energy or interest in a Biden-Trump rematch, even though young people voted overwhelmingly for Biden. And what we've seen also, honestly, from the Harris campaign is they're leaning into it. They're leaning into Gen Z culture. And
Brat Summer.
Yeah, exactly. And embracing it. Yeah, they're embracing it. There's more snark. There's more, There's more memes. And so it's energizing the young voters. Absolutely.
Tolliver, I certainly remember some of the Rock the Vote commercials from the height of the MTV era featuring musicians like Madonna and the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Jeremy, we're so old. Oh, my God. Here's Sir Mix-a-Lot, who, in all fairness, is not someone I typically associate with voter turnout. Take a listen.
Yo, what's up? It's real popular in rap music right now to diss the establishment or complain about the establishment's faults. I wanna get whipped out. What needs to be popular is getting y'all out there to vote. You know what I'm saying? And take your picture. I'm here to tell y'all if you're 18 or older and you're an American citizen, you got the right to vote. I seen her dancing. You got any complaints? You take it out on them. Peace. Baby got ballet.
Baby got back to the polls, apparently.
Yeah. By the way, podcast listeners, you don't get music like the people on the radio do because we don't have the rights to play it for you. But I can tell you this, we didn't even play Baby Got Back on the radio because it probably wouldn't have been appropriate. So we'll be back with more young callers on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife.
Boom, boom. This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I actually drop better when I'm high. It heightens my senses, calms me down. If anything, I'm more careful. Honestly, it just helps me focus.
That's probably what the driver who killed a 4-year-old told himself. And now he's in prison. You see, no matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious Black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, Black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they were just dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we want to know what's on the minds of young voters ahead of the election. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media.
I'm joined by longtime Rock the Vote president and executive director Carolyn DeWitt and Anil Cacodcar, a student at the Harvard Kennedy School who helped conduct a national poll of young voters. And before we get back to the phones, Anil, we know that over the course of history, youth voter turnout is lower than the population as a whole and a lot lower than the oldest voters. You talked a little bit about that, but what do you think would be the one thing that would help boost turnout among the youngest voters?
We in 2008, that's often, looked back upon as the youth vote moment. But that was sort of like a little blip in the continuum of the youth vote. And 2020, 2018, and 2022 are 3 consecutive cycles in which organizing power has been built up. This willpower to, get young people out to the ballot box. So it really isn't one thing that's going to drive young people to the polls. It's not one candidate, but the infrastructure, so to speak, has already been put into place to have young people turn out. You're having campaigns meet young voters where they're at. You're meeting them, through, trusted sources on social media and even cable news in some cases. So to answer your question, the one thing I would do to increase youth turnout is to meet young voters where they're at. And not expect young voters to, adhere to, the traditions of voter outreach.
Carolyn, I read that same-day voter registration is particularly effective at encouraging young people to vote, and letting 16 and 17-year-olds pre-register to vote before they turn 18 can also substantially increase turnout. Is that kind of thing widespread across the country?
It's not widespread, although a lot of organizations like Rock the Vote are trying to encourage states and actually at the federal level to adopt these policies because they do help new voters through the process, right? It's getting them not just pre-registration, but automatic voter registration. So when you're there getting your driver's license, for instance, when you're 16, right, you're getting automatically pre-registered to vote. So you're not having to go back when you're 18, which kind of makes no sense to anyone who's 18 years old, right? And you're in a transition moment as well. So, it's inevitable that every election cycle, we're also hearing from someone who missed their registration deadline that did not realize that they had a registration deadline. And it's heartbreaking. They want to actually participate, but then they're barred from doing it. And you see in some states that they're actually making registration, and you'll notice actually some states are worse off with policies. They make voter registration deadlines early, and then they don't have same day registration in order to make it harder for young people to vote. And I always say, if your vote wasn't powerful, they wouldn't be trying to prevent you from voting, right?
Yeah. Let's go back to the phones and Michael, who's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Michael, welcome to The Middle. Just tell us your age and then go ahead.
Hi, I'm 28 years old.
Awesome. And what do you think?
So I think that the economy and affordability, obviously, according to the polls and everything, seems to be top of mind for a lot of people. But my concern, especially for younger people, is some of the misinformation that's coming from where these inflated prices are coming from, i.e. corporate greed, things of that nature. I'm at the point in my life that I should be looking at trying to buy a house, and it's wildly unaffordable. And there's one campaign that I think will help address these types of issues more than the other will.
And what about your news? Where are you getting your information from?
So that's the other thing. It's really nice. I've grown up a conservative, and then when I was in high school, I started listening to NPR and I started to get more of a broad viewpoint of things, but I still will get my news from places like Fox, like Breitbart, things of that nature, but I'll also take things from the other side and try to have a more balanced viewpoint so I know what all the different sides are saying. It helps you be a more informed person to know when everybody is saying.
Michael, thank you so much for that call. Anil, one of the things that I always say or always ask when I go and speak to a classroom of college students or even high school students is, where do you get your news? And so many people now are just getting it from YouTube or TikTok or other places where you're not necessarily sure how much you can trust the information you're getting. Not that some people feel that they can trust the information they're getting from mainstream news organizations, but what about the information side of this, Anil, in terms of the people that you have spoken with?
we ask a lot about this in our poll. And if you look at 2020 and 2024 and compare where, voters under 30 are getting their information from, looks a lot different between these two election cycles. You're seeing less young people tuned into Fox News, CNN. You're seeing less young people tuned into even Facebook and Twitter/X or Snapchat or Instagram. The only social media platform that we've tracked that's seen a significant increase in viewership for news content is TikTok. So you're seeing that young voters are getting harder to reach on these other platforms where campaigns have sort of built a habit of reaching out to people there. And you're seeing, as the cycle ramps up, both sides of the aisle are making a significant effort to court young voters on TikTok. You've seen, President Trump, start a TikTok account himself, and his campaign reach out to young voters on there, and through content creators and influencers. So young people are getting their news from a variety of sources. It's not to say that everyone's going on social media and no one's going on cable TV. In fact, it's quite the opposite. A lot of folks are getting their news from cable TV and even YouTube and social media altogether. So it's not one particular source that's drowning out the others.
Well, we talk about social media. Tolliver, anything coming in on email or on TikTok?
Sorry, I'm rushing to follow Donald Trump's TikTok real quick. 1 second. Ahmad in Florida is 23, and he says, I consider myself an undecided voter. Probably the most important thing for me is corporate greed, the job market, and balancing environmental preservation with providing affordable housing. Owen, a 22-year-old Gen Z voter, says, my personal and political focus is entirely on climate mitigation. We're slowly collectively reacting, but not nearly fast or forcefully enough. Spoiler alert, all of these comments have to do with climate change.
Yeah, actually, Carolyn, that makes me wonder whether you see kind of a lack of hope or an abundance of hope among younger generations about some of these big issues like climate change being solved in the future. If they participate in the political process, do they believe that they can actually make a difference?
Yeah, I think that you're hitting a great point. I think the reality is Gen Z, and it's not unique to Gen Z, but Gen Z is incredibly frustrated, and understandably so, with where a lot of these issues are at that have been building up, right? Climate change has been ignored for a long time. Gun violence has been ignored for a long time, right? I was going to say, and now in some of these cases, also these issues are being rolled back. And so you see these issues such as also making sure that there's equity and in marginalized communities. So LGBTQ, right? Communities of color. And these are the issues that are really heart issues for young people because they're also living through them. This is an incredibly diverse generation. It's about 50% people of color. You have a larger LGBTQ community. They're going through the process, right? They're experiencing gun violence in their schools. They're experiencing immigration issues. And so they aren't looking at this as a thing that needs to be solved, like whether or not the candidate can solve it, they need to be solved. They're seeing that they are the ones that are going to be suffering from the consequences of the inaction. And they're frustrated by it, but they're also hopeful and want to take the reins and take over and solve the issues in a bold way.
Let's go to Jasper, who's in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Jasper, welcome to the middle. Tell us your age and then go ahead.
Hello, I'm 25, and my biggest concern is parenting. I'm soon going to be marrying my partner, fingers crossed, and I want to be able to have a child in a way that I feel most comfortable with and I can afford. Being able to buy property, whether that be a house, and being able to keep a job. And because I'm going into the public health field, I need to be sure that I'm able to be getting grants. So I need an administration that believes in public health.
And are you seeing that in the choices that you have now?
I do. For the most part, I do.
Yeah. Are you for sure going to vote?
Oh, most certainly, without a shadow of a doubt. Oh, on top of that, since we did mention parenting, I do want to make sure I'm going to be able to marry my partner. So that's also, top in mind for me.
Yeah. Jasper, thank you so much for that call. And let me go to Linda, who's in Parker, Colorado. Linda, what's your age and what do you think?
Hi, Hi, I'm 24. I'll be 25 this next year. And I think that this election is going to be very pivotal for just how the democracy is going to run. Like, we've seen a lot of news headlines come out about interference and things like that. And my perspective on it is it doesn't matter who you vote for. Like, I don't care who you vote for, but the biggest thing is to vote and for your opinion to be out there, so that way there is evidence to back that up. I think that there's a lot of issues in our country right now that are below the belt that shouldn't be the biggest priority.
Like
really
what? What are
need
you thinking about, by the way, on that front? What do you think should not be talked about? Should not be a big priority right now?
So comparing it to my mom's generation and comparing it specifically to my grandmother's generation, I feel like the topic of women's rights is really something that shouldn't be the priority. There seem to be way more issues of like schools being underfunded. Like, that should be a priority. We have rights. No one's taking that away. It's never been a conversation of, hey, let's take away your rights because you're a woman. Yes, there's different access to different, abortion and things like that and resources, but that shouldn't be what we're talking about at a federal level.
This podcast is supported by the original organic bedding and bath brand, Koyuchi.
Koyuchi has spent 35 years pioneering quality organic textiles, long before the word organic became, trendy. But words matter to Koyuchi. Words like craftsmanship, longevity, and wellness. So what does the word wellness mean to Koyuchi? It means that all of our products are absolutely free from harsh chemicals and dangerous toxins that can seep into your skin. It means effortless style that looks as good as it feels with naturally breathable, pre-washed organic cotton. And what does all of that mean to you? Well, it means that you can sleep well in Koyuchi's crisp, cool, luxuriously soft sheets that are ethically made and made with you in mind. Live well, sleep well with Koyuchi. And now during our Memorial Day sale event, you can enjoy 20% off organic cotton sheets, towels, and everything else at Koyuchi.com. That's Koyuchi.com for 20% off from now until May 25th. Koyuchi.com.
We should be addressing the financial situation. We should be looking at our foreign policies and things like that. Yeah. Because when you bring it down to how our democracy works, our biggest influence is at our local government. Yeah. And the federal government can't really control a lot of that. So if, hey, you see a problem in your neighborhood, like there's an abortion clinic that I want to be here, or if you have the other opinion where you don't want one, go to your local officials, because those are the people that are going to make a difference.
Okay, Linda, we've got it. Thank you so much for that call. And I think, by the way, Anil Cacodcar, I want to go to you on that. I think some people would probably disagree that the federal government doesn't have anything to do with your access to abortion, especially right now with the Supreme Court decision that occurred. But what do you make of what Linda was saying about the kinds of issues that are important to her versus the kinds that are not? And she did mention the economy as being a very important one.
Yeah, I mean, like we discussed earlier, young voters aren't a monolith, but they are by and large concerned with personal freedoms. Now, whether that's the personal freedom to be safe from gun violence, or the freedom to breathe clean air and clean water, or the freedom to make reproductive healthcare decisions. So this theme of freedom is something that the Harris campaign has definitely at least latched onto in their messaging to young voters. But I think it also speaks more broadly to the way that young voters view the government as a tool, to accomplish change. So if you looked at young voters in 2014, 2012, and you asked them, do you think the government should be providing, basic health insurance? Do you think the government should be acting aggressively on climate change? By and large, young people would not agree that the government, had that place. Today, young Republicans even are more likely than not to say that the government should provide basic health insurance to those who can't afford it. So we're seeing a really, big shift in terms of how young voters, both liberal and conservative, both Democrat and Republican, view the role of government in addressing their day-to-day concerns. And that's part of why we've seen such a precipitous decline in institutional trust. If you ask young people if they trust Congress, the president, the military even, to do the right thing, it's so much less likely that they're going to say yes today.
Hey, Carolyn, how do you get young people to trust you at Rock the Vote? to help them figure out how they should vote. You've got to attract a new crop every 4 years.
That's perfect. I always say we have a new class of young voters. It's like, why haven't we solved the young voter? Because there's a new class, right? There's there are 4 million new 18-year-olds who are going to be eligible to vote this year, right? This is going to be 16 million are going to be able to vote in their first presidential election. So what I think Anil said earlier is trusted messengers are incredibly important, especially in the space where you have a lot of media, a lot of noise on social media. And so organizations like Rock the Vote and others we don't rely on young people coming to us, right?
You've got to go to them.
Right. We go to them. We go to where they are. So a lot of that is working with cultural trusted messengers, cultural messengers. So musicians, athletes, celebrities. Sometimes it's teachers. We also have school programs. So we're touching them wherever we can in their spaces and welcoming them into the civic space.
Let's go to Daniel, who's in Kansas City, Missouri. Daniel, welcome to the middle. Tell us your age and tell us what you think.
Hi, I am 31 years old. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm in a pretty solidly Democratic stronghold in what's otherwise a very solidly red state. And I'm pretty concerned this election cycle about voter accessibility and the fact that I've heard some stories. I'm an avid NPR listener, and I've been hearing some stories about what seem to be voter suppression efforts across the country. And I wonder if maybe your experts could speak to this more broadly, or in Missouri and Kansas in the Midwest. But it seems like there might be some efforts to take people off voter rolls, and I'm wondering if that's affecting younger voters because they are such a strong, voter block this election cycle. If that's something that might be affecting younger voters now.
Well, let me take that to Carolyn DeWitt. Carolyn, what do you think about that? Are some of these efforts in various states to take people off rolls and suppress voting, is that going to have a big effect on young voters?
Absolutely. So I think most people think of voter suppression in terms of the 1950s, right? We think of pre-Voting Rights Act. And since the Shelby v. Holder decision of 2013, we've actually seen a rollback. That's why a lot of people call it the Jim Crow number 2, is that we are seeing voter suppression efforts and policies pass that we have not seen in decades. And there is a way to fix that. There's federal legislation that can fix that, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. But what we are seeing, what you're talking about of voter roll purging, we are seeing millions of people being thrown off voter rolls. So even if you're registered to vote, it is incredibly important to make sure that you check your registration status and encourage those around you.
Tolliver, as we heard from Carolyn, people under 21 weren't even legally allowed to vote until pretty recently in the country's history.
Yeah, that's right. 1971 saw the passage of the 26th Amendment, which brought the national minimum voting age down to 18. Here's President Richard Nixon at the certification of the amendment.
Well, it's a very great privilege to welcome this very exciting group to the White House on the day that we celebrate our National Independence Day. And it seems to me that it is particularly appropriate that on this same day, we are certifying the 26th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. That amendment, as you know, provides for the right to vote of all of our young people between 18 and 21. 11 million new voters as a result of this amendment that you now will see certified by the GSA administrator.
Wow. Tolliver, it's amazing how many times we've heard Richard Nixon on this show. He really did do a lot in his presidency outside of Watergate.
Turns out. Who knew?
We'll be right back with more of The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world. The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious Black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, Black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. This hour, we're asking what's on the minds of young voters ahead of this election. And as we've been hearing, we have a lot of young listeners here at The Middle. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. I'm joined by longtime Rock the Vote president and executive director Carolyn DeWitt and Anil Cacodcar, who's a student at Harvard University's Kennedy School, and he helped conduct a national poll of young voters. We've got some more on the line, and I want to go to Sung Gin, who is in Detroit, Michigan. Sung Gin, what's your age, and what do you think?
Hi, I'm Sung Jin. I'm 24 years old. As a young voter, someone who's never missed a general or primary election since the age that I could vote, I'm extremely engaged in foreign policy at this moment. I'm extremely I have my eye on Israel-Palestine. I watched the DNC with a lot of enthusiasm and was thoroughly disappointed with Kamala Harris's speech, and so I'll definitely be looking for a commitment from her.
What kind of commitment?
A commitment to stop the violence, a commitment to end the arms trade that sustains the genocide of the Palestinians. These are things that, as a person living in community with the biggest population of Arab Americans, and of course, as a Korean American, I don't claim to speak for everyone. I speak for myself and a lot of my friends. I'm looking for an end to the kind of administration that would abet in such an action that Israel is committing against the Palestinians.
And just quickly, your thoughts on Trump and his views on the situation in Gaza.
Certainly, Donald Trump is a nightmare, and I do not want Donald Trump, and so that's why I'm speaking specifically about Vice President Kamala Harris, and that's why all the power to the student protesters at universities and the people that I hope to join in putting pressure on Kamala Harris and making a deeper commitment, because as an undecided voter, I'm looking to her.
Sunjin, thank you very much for that call. Anil, as you said, the issues that are important to people who are younger, like Sunjin, are a lot of the same issues that are important to all generations. And he's in Michigan, which is a state that has a lot of people that are particularly concerned about the war in Gaza.
Absolutely. We had the chance to go to the Metro Detroit area the week of the Democratic primary in Michigan and conducted a town hall out in Livonia with some young voters as well to get, some qualitative thoughts on, what was driving the uncommitted vote. And we also met with some local leaders behind the uncommitted vote as well to understand, what's driving this. And I think, when we talk about the conflict in the Middle East and young voters, something that often gets left behind is the fact that young voters sympathize equally with both people groups, but view the governments involved less favorably. And this is really a people-driven conversation. So any emphasis on the well-being of families and children, is sure to capture the hearts and hopefully votes of young voters.
Justin is in St. Paul, Minnesota. Justin, welcome to The Middle. Can you give us your age and go ahead, please?
Yeah, hi. I am 28 years old, and I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota.
And what are you thinking about ahead of this election?
There is one topic that concerns me way more than any others, and that is the war in Europe, the war in Ukraine. I study history at the U of M, and any time that there has been this sort of arms race, this buildup of military power, it's not even a Cold War anymore. It's way hotter than the Cold War used to be. And I'm looking for someone who actually wants to de-escalate the fighting in Ukraine and towards a deal, a negotiation to stop violence, because it doesn't seem to me that Ukraine is going to militarily achieve their goals anytime soon. I've read lots of polls that lots of Ukrainians are willing to trade land for peace. There's such a great depth of history here in Eastern Europe, and I feel like Americans in general don't know anything of the history behind the geopolitical crisis that's in Ukraine today, and I just want that to come to an end. Yeah.
Justin, thank you very much for that. Carolyn DeWitt, are you surprised about from these callers that are calling about foreign policy issues at that age?
No, not at all. I mean, this is I was saying before, I think we underestimate a lot of people underestimate this generation and how they have more access to information than any generation before them. And they're more connected to what's going on around the world. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I think what we heard also from the previous caller was, this desire to want to engage in the democratic process, to want a candidate who aligns with their values, and who one of the things that we talk a lot about at Rock the Vote is there is no perfect candidate, right? You rarely get a candidate. These are humans. These are complex issues. And so a lot of times it's about finding the candidate who most aligns with your values and then pushing the issue as hard as you can, because a lot of these big issues take decades a lot of times to resolve.
Let's go to Scott, who's in Boston, Massachusetts. Scott, how old are you and what do you think?
Hi, I am 33 years old, so I guess I'm on the older side of the bell curve here. But
still counted
one of
as
the
young.
things that
Still counted as young on the middle right now. So go ahead.
Nice. What I think that a lot of voters are, especially like my age and younger, where just jumping into the economy, you got your first job out of school, you got student debt to pay, you got all these things going on happening now. But people are forgetting the fact that, like, we're talking about Donald Trump here, a person that is interested in getting back into office to make consequential changes to the way that our democracy works. And I'm not saying that our democracy right now is perfect, but I do think that it's a terrible idea to vote someone into office who has a interest in meddling in the Federal Reserve's duty to preserve the balance of the economy. And if you think that Donald Trump is well qualified to do that, and he's not going to make interest rate cuts just to make himself look better, you end up in a situation like they have in Turkey, where Erdogan and his administration get to control the economy, and they have driven that economy into the ground. So I think, for me, it's scary that, like, we're ignoring the fact that there's some interests that Donald Trump has that are hugely consequential, bigger than your immediate economic woe.
Yeah. Scott, thank you very much for that call. Tolliver, do you think I have to ask each person when they call to give us their age first, or will they just do it without me asking?
I was just thinking we're like carding all our listeners.
Must be this tall to ride the ride. Okay, let's try Bevan in Saline, Michigan. Bevan, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi, I am 23 years old.
23. Okay, great.
I think that the issue between the two parties is that sometimes they are saying the same thing with different language. So a lot of the time when the right will say the elites, the left will say corporate greed or capitalists. But a lot of this is just pandering, and neither party is addressing the issue that voters want to be addressed. The two-party system isn't really serving people, and people need something that's not backed by corporate interests to make them excited to vote.
Bevan, that's a great point. I want to ask Anil about that. Couple of things there, but one of them that I'd love to ask you about is, are the candidates talking to your generation? Do you feel like they're pandering, as we just heard there, or are they talking with respect to younger voters?
No, yeah. I mean, it's important to remember that young voters, didn't just fall out of the coconut tree. I mean, this is a pretty savvy generation. So I think the radar for pandering is very strong with this generation. And I think that growing up in the digital age as digital natives, we're exposed to so much content that is manufactured. So when something comes up that is obviously, very polished and very pristine, 18, 19, 20-year-olds grew up on an internet where Photoshop is, a regular occurrence, where we know what an AI-generated image looks like because the fingers are off, right? So this is a generation that's naturally skeptical of any outreach from people in power. But, that skepticism can actually be a benefit in many cases, because it forces candidates who are wanting to engage with young voters to engage more critically and to dig a little bit deeper than a promise, a campaign promise, or a rally. It really forces candidates to build relationships, trusted relationships with these young voters over time. And as the race is reshuffled with under 100 days left, there isn't a whole lot of time to do that. So it really is a supreme challenge to do that right now.
Way under 100 days. I think we're closer to 60 days right now.
The first early ballots go out in just a few weeks.
True. Very, very soon, the first early ballots go out, I think in North Carolina, which is a swing state at this point. Let's get to William, who's in Nashville, Tennessee. William, go ahead.
Hey there. I just thought I'd call in because I heard a caller earlier talk about how they are holding out for Kamala Harris to stop the violence in Israel and Palestine. which, I mean, I agree with. I want that violence to stop, but I just don't see that ever happening with a Kamala or Donald Trump, because I think there's too much money involved with the with either party, and there's global politics involved that obviously aren't gonna benefit the Palestinian people.
Are you planning to vote, William? Are you planning to vote in this election, and do you know who for? Because it sounds like you don't like either one.
I don't really like either one. I would like to vote for Kamala because I think that there's a chance she will do something about abortion issues, which is, I think, another super important thing that's being glossed over, kind of. But I also kind of don't. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing was able to be done in that sense either, because I feel like the Democrats have been holding abortion over our heads as like a campaign point for years and years and years. And Donald Trump and the Supreme Court that he elected took it away from the American people. And now it's just another, like, it's like added ammo for a Democrat.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, William, thank you for that. And Carolyn DeWitt, it brings up a point because William sounds like doesn't really like either side there. You've said Rock the Vote is a nonpartisan organization. I do want to ask you, though, after the 2016 election, you released a statement from Rock the Vote saying this is a jarring day for millennial voters who voted overwhelmingly for Secretary Clinton and for progressive candidates down the ticket. How do you keep Rock the Vote nonpartisan when, in many cases, as I'm sure in 2016, a lot of the people who you're representing basically are going to vote one way as opposed to sort of split down the middle?
Yeah. So ever since, thanks for the question. And honestly, for all the callers, I'm really impressed by all the callers who have called in.
They're always impressive.
But since Rock the Vote was founded, it was founded on an issue. It was founded on the censorship of hip hop and rap artists who had something to say about what they were experiencing in their day-to-day lives, and the frustration and, frankly, the anger and of how a system was set up, and democracy and the censorship of their lyrics and their stories. And so since its founding over 30 years ago, we have stayed true to that we reflect what young people care about. And so when young people care about the issues of, abortion, climate change, gun violence, the things that they're experiencing, we honor that, frankly. We don't shy away from that because these aren't issues that one party has to represent. Both parties can be dealing with them, right? Can be addressing them. It doesn't have to be one. And we know that there are people on both sides of the aisle, and I won't just limit it to the two parties, but that there are multiple individuals through the several different parties that do actually exist who are trying to address these issues. Mm-hmm. So that is, we just uplift the issues. And honestly, any candidate who speaks about the issues and tries to address them in the way that young people want them addressed, which is frankly boldly and urgently, are going to be the party that wins the generation. And frankly, there's no path forward to the White House for the candidate that does not court the youth generation.
Well, yeah, Generation Z, I think, is the biggest generation right now. Let's get one more caller squeezed in here. Henry in Dallas, Texas. Henry, go ahead briefly.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm 25, so I don't have a ton of memory of many previous elections, but going back to rewatch old debates of, say, Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, or even watching the George Bush correspondence dinners, I'm struck by just how professional people running for the highest office seem to have used to been. And I don't know how we return to that level of civility and substance-focused electoral politics that, even with a very short memory as a younger voter, I still remember. I don't know how we get back to that, but I would very much like to.
That is such a great point, Henry. Great point to end on. And Anil Cacodcar, let me just ask you. I actually am really disappointed when I see now the debates happen and they don't shake hands anymore because they just hate each other. Seems like so much. But what do you think about the civility, just briefly, as a final question to you?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a serious election in, many cases that in many cases has taken an unserious tone. And for young voters, particularly this new cohort that's aging into, the electorate for the first time, we don't remember anything other than, this, lack of civility. When Donald Trump, for example, we're going to talk about Mitt Romney and George Bush as sort of, predecessors to Trump. I don't remember Bush and Romney as candidates. I was in 7th grade when, Trump ran in 2016.
Yeah. Well, they were. I can tell you. I want to thank my guest, Anil Cacodcar, who is a student at the Harvard Kennedy School who helped conduct a national poll of young voters ahead of this election, and Carolyn DeWitt, president and executive director of Rock the Vote. Thanks so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Next week, we're going to be bringing you a special edition of The Middle right after the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on Tuesday. Then we're back at our regular time with an episode about the media, Tolliver.
That's right. We want to know if you think media companies and social media companies like X and Meta have too much sway in this election. You can call in at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmastaz, and John Barth. Our intern is Annika Deschler. Our technical director is Jason Croft. Thanks so much to all of our young listeners for calling in this hour. What a great treat that was. And thanks to the more than 410 public radio stations making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and I will talk to you twice next week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969, Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories. All caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Saturday, May 2nd, country's biggest stars will be in Austin, Texas at our 2026 iHeart Country Festival presented by Capital One. See Kane Brown, Parker McCollum, Riley Green, Shabuzi, Dylan Scott, Russell Dickerson, Gretchen Wilson, Chase Matthew, Lauren Elena. Tickets are on sale now. Get yours before they sell out at Ticketmaster.com.
When segregation was a law, one mysterious Black club owner, Charlie Fitzgerald, had his own rules.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
It was like stepping on another world.
Was he a businessman, a criminal, a hero?
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him
Charlie's Place from Atlas Obscura and Visit Myrtle Beach. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.